There's a name that hasn't moved, but everything around it has. There's a price being thrown out that sounds crazy at first, until you actually line it up with what other teams are already offering. And there's one decision sitting underneath all this that could completely change this team. So let's get it mixing. What's up, Mafia? So, before we get into any of the rumors, and before we start throwing trade packages around, you've got to look at what just happened in Cleveland, because the Browns just restructured Myles Garrett's contract and moved about $29 million. Now, that doesn't mean that he's getting traded, but it does mean if they ever decide to, it just got a whole lot easier to move on from his contract. And that's where this starts to feel different, because now you got Adam Schefter calling Cleveland, and they're saying that they're not trading him.
I called the Browns. I'm like, what's going on here? And they're like, we are 100% definitely not trading him. I'm like, okay. Now, I will say this. They were adamant about it. And they're like, don't even bring it up and dignify the fact, because we're not trading him.
But at the same time, they just made a move that lines everything up just in case they wanted to. So now it's just not random talk. Now it's like, okay, why would they do that? And once you start asking that, that's where the whole conversation shifts. Because now it's not just, is Myles Garrett available? It's, what will it actually take for you to trade him? But before we even go there, you've got to understand who we're talking about. Because this isn't just a good edge rusher. This is the edge rusher. 23 sacks last season. He hasn't had under 14 sacks since the 2020 season. And he's giving you all pro level production year after year. This is the type of player that offenses spend their entire week trying to slow down. So when that name comes up, you're not thinking about a normal trade. You're thinking this is going to cost something massive. And that's where people start pushing back. Because when you hear 2 firsts, 3 firsts, and other players get involved, the reaction is always, no way, that's too much. But here's the problem. People aren't comparing it to what the market has already told us. Let's start with Maxx Crosby. We've already seen offers like a first plus a second or third, and you have to throw on a player. And that deal still didn't get done. Then you got teams willing to go even higher, talking about offering multiple first-round draft picks. And that was the average cost for Maxx Crosby. Now, let's go up another level. Look at what was offered for Micah Parsons. We all know the trade package that the Eagles were trying to put together. 2 firsts, a third, a fifth, and possibly a player. And that still didn't close that deal. So now look at this for a second. Crosby was pushing for multiple first rounders. Micah Parsons' value was even higher. So when you hear Myles Garrett could cost you up to 3 first-round draft picks, that's not crazy at all. That's the market. That's the price of elite. Now, once you actually accept what elite cost, the next question is, how do you even build a deal like that? Because saying 3 first-round draft picks sounds easy until you actually try to put that together. And that's where conversations start to get real. Because right now, you can only trade picks up to 3 years out. So, if you're trying to offer 3 first-round draft picks, you're cramming everything you have into a tight window. And that's aggressive and is also risky. That essentially means your next top draft prospects are gone. But now, here's the part that could change everything. The Browns just submitted a proposal to expand the rule to 5 years. Now, if you sit back and think about it, that is not a random idea. That's a team looking at deals like this and realizing we can't even structure this properly right now. Because if that rule changes, everything opens up. Now instead of stacking picks, you can spread them out. Now instead of crippling your short-term future, you can manage it. And now, deals that sounded crazy before start to feel a little more realistic. So this isn't about if a team is willing to give up 3 first-round draft picks. It turns into, can they build it without wrecking everything else? And if that answer becomes yes, don't be surprised if it turns from talk into actuality real fast. And it's no surprise the Eagles are trying to fill that edge rusher role. Look at how the Eagles are trying to handle this situation now. This shifts right back into Jonathan Greenard. He's still on our radar, and our interest hasn't just disappeared. You hear his name connected to Philadelphia. You see the reports stating that they're interested, and that they're keeping tabs. So it looks like something that could actually happen. And then his agent starts putting numbers out there. We're talking around 120 million. About 80 million guaranteed, right in the 30 million per year range. And if that sounds familiar, That is the exact same deal that Jalen Phillips got with the Carolina Panthers. And that was the deal that Philadelphia walked away from. And Phillips was younger, and he was a better player than Greenard. So now, instead of jumping on it and rushing a deal to get done, the Eagles are taking a step back and they sit. They don't rush and they don't force it. They stay interested, but they're not moving for that number. Now, this isn't their way of saying no. This is them saying, not at that price. Because if we were going to pay that price, we would have just signed Jalen Phillips back. So signing Greenard at that price makes absolutely no sense. But don't get me wrong, Greenard can still play. That's not the question. But now you got to ask yourself, is he worth that level of money? And right now, they're not sold on it. So they wait, they watch, and they let everything play out. And that matters, because if they do ever go big, it's not going to be for a player who's pretty good. It's going to be for a player who actually changes things and can disrupt the game. And that brings you right back to Myles Garrett. Now, we're going to add one more piece to this. Cam Jurgens. This flew a little bit underneath the radar when it really shouldn't have. We all knew all last season that he was dealing with injury. But what we didn't know was how bad it actually was.
A disc, and then right before the playoffs, my disc like broke off and got wrapped around my sciatic nerve. So it was just like suffocating my leg. It was hard to walk. I don't know how I was playing. Like it was easily the worst month of my life, but then also like kind of the best month of my life because we won the Super Bowl. But it was just miserable, dude. Just the pain and then getting surgery and like trying to get back for the next year. And you know, it's always tough having a surgery in the off season, but when you have back surgery, it is tough. Like it takes a good year to come back from that. And like, I'm starting to feel really good, but dude, just all year, just trying to get through that. Just a tough year with the back, but it's feeling so much better.
Now we know that he had a broken disc that wrapped around his sciatic nerve, and he still played through all that pain. The guy is tough as nails. And if you watched him, we could all tell that something wasn't right. He looked like a shell of himself. There were snaps where he got pushed back before Jalen Hurts even took a step. Times where the middle of the offensive line didn't even hold up. And you could tell the push just wasn't there anymore. So now this isn't just some random injury note. This is part of why things didn't look right up front. Because while everyone is focusing on what they can add, you've got to also factor in the fact that Jurgens is getting healthier now. So now the question changes to, what will this line actually look like when Jurgens is actually healthy? Now you're talking about a center who's not getting walked back into the pocket, who's not losing leverage right after the snap. Because last year there were times when the middle of the line just went soft. You saw it on runs that were supposed to hit quick, and they didn't. That push inside was very inconsistent. And when that happens, everything else gets thrown off. Now the timing's off. Now the hole isn't where it's supposed to be. And that's where you disrupt Saquon Barkley. We didn't bring him here to hesitate and dance around. We brought him here to hit the hole hard and fight for extra yardage. And if the interior is right, he runs downhill, he's decisive, and he's getting what's there and more. But if those opportunities aren't there, now he's waiting, now he's bouncing, and now he's trying to create something that should already be there. And that's the difference. So, if Jurgens comes back at least 80%, that whole part of the offense cleans itself up. And if that stabilizes, you're not looking at an offense that looks like it needs saving. And now you've got flexibility to go make a move somewhere else. And that brings you right back into the Myles Garrett sweepstakes. So, here's where I land with all this. The price for Myles Garrett. It's high, yes, but it all lines up. You've seen it with Crosby, and you've seen it with Parsons. That's what elite cost. But the real question isn't just about the picks. It's whether a team is willing to structure a deal like that and live with what actually comes after. Because once you go that big, that's an idea you're committing to. So, if the Eagles actually step into that conversation, you already know what it's going to take. Are you willing to make that deal? Drop it in the comments section and let me know. And if you like Eagles content like this, remember to like, share, and subscribe. And also turn on that notification bell. Because if anything moves, you know we're going to cover it. So once again, I've been Brother Shy, and this has been the Midnight Green Mafia.